This week we're going to be looking at Google Slides and what you can do to create powerful presentations. So first things first, we need to give it a title. Once you come over and click where it said Untitled Presentation, that begins the process of saving the document and giving it a name so that you don't need to do that as a separate step. So now that I have a document title for this, I have a couple of options. I can come over to the Explore feature, and it lets me explore different themes that will be carried out throughout the slideshow. And I can close that. And then I can also add a new slide, and I have two options. I can click plus sign, which is going to create just a new slide, and it chooses the format that it will be. Or if I click this drop-down menu, I can choose the type of file, slideshow, the presentation that comes next. So you get some different choices, whether it's columns and titles, or a title only, a column with text, or just a caption. So you have some choices here. I'm actually going to click a blank slide here now so that I have a new slide. You'll notice at the bottom of each slide there is a speaker notes section, and you can make this larger if you're working either for a presentation or if this is work that students will be collaborating on to create. This is where you'd want to put instructions for what they're doing or what they need to say. It's a great way to, especially if you're making a copy for students or sharing this with students to collaborate together, they will know what to do, and it's another way to reinforce directions. So with speaker notes, you just start typing. Step 1. As you normally would. You can also add voice typing. So come to Tools and Voice Type Speaker Notes. Then, after you press this button here, everything you type becomes text, which you can then use in the notes. So once I've done this, now you can take everything that you've typed in the speaker notes, highlight it, Control-C to copy it, then insert a text box, and do Control-V to paste it. So this is a great way for students who have who have difficulty typing what they mean, or it takes them a while, or they have an accommodation that requires dictation. They can record what they want to say in the speaker notes and then copy and paste it into the presentation to kind of speed things up and to meet that accommodation. So from there, I can go ahead and change my text. So whatever I've got highlighted, I can then change the text to something you like better and change the size here. Kind of fabulous. So let's talk about the look of this, because we chose not to do a theme. You can come in and change the background. So just click anywhere and hit Control click on the back, anywhere on the slide that doesn't already have a text box or an image, and you can go to change background. Here you can choose either a color or an image that you already have on your desktop or in Google Drive. But I'm going to go with a color. I'm going to choose a nice blue. I'm going to click done. So now I want to change my font so that the text is more easily visible on this slide. So now let's take a look at word art within Google Slides. So you have the option to insert word art. And I'm going to change our title from something boring to word art. So I'm going to go to insert and word art. And I'm going to give it the title that we chose. And you'll notice it's overlaid. So what I want to do is to come and remove this before I go in and edit our word art. And you'll notice these red lines that appear. Those are letting you know that whatever you selected is centered. So this is centered from left to right. If I see both, that means it's left to right and top to bottom. So what I'd like to do with it, so the selected area, you can tell it's selected because it's in blue. I'm going to choose a different font. I'm going to come here, and you'll notice it starts to change depending on the font. So that's kind of a fun option. For a title or something, you want a thicker slide. The thicker, the better. And now I'm going to change the fill because the default is gray, but I'm going to add something more interesting. Nice shade of blue. You can also change the outline. So if it's in this grayish color right now, if you wanted it to be yellow, it would pop out that way. More of a subtle option. So I'm going to go with that original color. So once you're here, you've created this, we're going to go to Format Options because we can now make some adjustments. We can change the size and position. This would be a way to rotate it at an angle. Perhaps you wanted your title to be over here for a more dramatic effect, or you want it here again. You can also flip it on the X and the Y axis, which gives some more interest depending on what you're hoping to do. You can make it larger, its width and its height, and then realign and adjust so it's centered. Now, if I scroll down, I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to look at the drop shadow. So this just makes it look a little bit more professional. The transparency is pretty high right now. You can also adjust your color. I'm going to pick a grayscale. You can adjust your angle. And the distance is how far the shadow is from your existing letter. So you'll notice as I change it, the distance adjusts how wide the shadow is. You can adjust the blur radius, so it's a heavy blur or almost no blur, so it's very crisp with the shade. I'm going to adjust my angle just a little so it's there. So now I have a three-dimensional word art title for this presentation. And that was, again, found by selecting the object and choosing Format Options. You can also come in and add a reflection. Move this. You'll see here. So I've got the size of my reflection, the transparency, adjust how thin, and then how much distance you're willing to be from the object. And by size, it shows you how much of the reflection you'll see. So, and I'm actually going to turn that off right now. So now that we've looked at word art and what you can do with that, so the next thing I'm going to do, I like this slide type. I want to keep this background. So actually I'm going to just right click and duplicate the slide, because I'm going to make some adjustments. Now at any point over here on the left sidebar, you can actually adjust the order of the slides at any time, which is very helpful. So there are a couple of options when inserting a video. If you already know the link, and it's very similar to when you insert in a Google Doc, if it's you want to insert something from YouTube and you already have the link, that makes it super easy. You can also insert from your drive. So I'm going to come up here to insert, and I'm going to select video. So you have the option to search YouTube with words or the direct link. If you have the URL of the video, please know though that it needs to be a YouTube URL, or you can choose from Google Drive. So I have the video, and now I'm going to paste that link, and you'll see the preview pops up. So I'm going to select that. Once the video has been inserted, you can adjust the size. Just click and drag from the corner or these bullet points, and the video will adjust automatically. Now, the other options that you have, you'll notice that the format options is here, but we now have a tab for video playback that wasn't there before. So you can decide when in the video you want it to begin. So I actually don't want this to start until about 40 seconds in. You can decide when it's going to end. Now, because this is not my video and copyright says that up to 30 seconds so it'll start at 40 seconds. We're going to have it end at 1 minute. $10 seconds, which gives us 30 seconds worth of playtime. Now, I do want this when I am giving this presentation. I actually want this to autoplay. So I'm going to select that right here so that when I am presenting and I land on this slide, the video will begin playing immediately. You also have the option to mute the audio so that just the images on a video are playing. So there's lots of potential for that in your lessons or an activity as well. So now that I've got the autoplay when presenting, I've set that I only want 30 seconds of this video to play. I'm going to hit close, and we are ready to go to our next slide. I'm going to create a new slide and leave some room. So I just want one caption. So now we're going to insert an image. I have added this slide that has a description at the bottom. Which this is going to be the image that I insert. I'm actually going to change the font because you can do that from slide to slide. And now I'm going to insert that image. So I'm going to come over to image. I actually know that this is in my Google Photos, the image that I'd like. But you have some options. If you know the URL, you can insert it that way. If it's in your drive, if you want to do an image search, it also, just like in Google Docs, searches from images that have the usage rights for you to use them. You can also pull from your camera, which would be like taking a selfie. All right, so actually I'm going to pull from Photos. It just pulls it up here. So now that I have the image, I'm going to center it. But there are some things that you can do with an image in between. So you have a couple of options. If you either double click on it or select crop, you can choose drop-down menu here. Allows you to actually trim the image into a shape. So let's say I choose this one. It then crops my image within this shape. If I double click, you see the outline, so I can enlarge my image here. And when I click away, you only see part of it. I can also adjust the shape. resize. And you'll notice I'm dragging at the corners. Otherwise, if you just drag by here at the sides or at the top, it actually adjusts and stretches out your image so that it is not clear and it has that weird stretchy look. But for a cleaner look and to keep the aspect ratio, you want to drag just at the corners of your image. So I'm going to pull that, boom. Now the other option with your image selected is to choose the Explore button. And then it gives you some predetermined layouts to see the most of your image. They've put some different filters, they've applied some different layouts, and I really like this one. So I'm going to select that. For my image, I can then bring it down. If I want to see some of the skyline, and then click away, and then there it is again. So it keeps that formatting of the here on the Explore feature. It just gives you a more professional look for your image. So now we're going to look at inserting a diagram into a slideshow. So to do that, I have a new slide, chosen one where the title is at the top. I'm going to come up to Insert and select Diagram, and it's going to pop up a sidebar where I get to choose which type of diagram I want to insert. The diagram becomes transparent, and then you can edit the features of it to fit whatever data you're trying to convey to your audience. So for this one, I'm actually going to use the timeline feature. So you'll notice these bars, they give you some options for what that can look like here. So I'm going to choose this one. Now, the points here are adjustable should you want to do so. Also, each section of that is also adjustable. The color, you have some defaults that you would need to select before. Also, you can select the amount of dates that you'd like to see. For this one, I'm going to keep it at 4 dates. And then you just click on each icon to adjust and edit. They put text in Latin just so that you can know that it's yours to edit as you see fit. You also have the option to change the size so that you can read it, as well as the font to match what you'd like it to be. So you have some control over each item in the timeline. And this also works for other choices, whether it is relationships or cycles, a process, hierarchy, or grid. You have all of these same choices. Now we're going to look at how you can link to other slides within the slideshow. So this is a great way to create a table of contents in a slideshow, especially if you are creating the template for students and then they would choose the slide that they are going to edit. It's also another opportunity that if you're at the end of the slideshow and you want it to just go back to the beginning, you create a link to the beginning or slides within it depending on what data is listed. So there are lots of possibilities for using this tool. So the first thing we're going to do is type some text. And I'm just going to insert a text box. I'm going to change the font. So now I'm going to select the text. I'm going to choose the Insert Link button. And I'm going to choose Slides in this presentation. So now I have the choice for either the previous slide, the very first slide, or by slide number. So what I'm going to do is choose slide 1 and apply. So now when I click this, it takes me to the beginning to start over again, or to wherever in order for whatever option you want students to have. Using this feature of linking other slides within this can be used to add a table of contents. So you could add a title and then insert a table. Just you can then adjust how the slide looks. If you come to select all of them, you can then change the border color to transparent so no one sees that it's actually a border and it looks clean. And now, if I adjust this to here, I can select and use this to insert a link and apply. So now, if you share this out, students know exactly which slide they're going to work on. There's no question, there's no doubt. They can very easily work on their page without disturbing someone else's work or having a hard time figuring out where they go. Now, we're back at the beginning, and let's insert a page number link. There are times when perhaps students need to create a slideshow that is a certain number of slides long, or you want a better way of keeping track. So we'll come up to Insert and come down to Slide Numbers. And you have the option to turn it on or off and or to skip title slides. So I'm going to turn it on. I want to include the title slides, and I'm going to hit apply. So now a number has been added each slide, which is so now let's take a look at the transitions of a Google slide. It's a feature in PowerPoint, and it is also available in Google Slides. So you'll notice when you're on, I'm back to the beginning slide, I have some options: the layout, the theme, the background, and transition. I'm going to click transition, and the default is no transition. So what you can do here, you can choose the one. There are very limited choices, unlike PowerPoint. So select cube. You have the ability to adjust the speed here, and then whether or not to apply it to all slides. There are times when you just want everything to be consistent, and that's when you would hit apply to all slides. Otherwise, you would go to each individual slide to choose the animation. Hit play. And you'll notice it moves out in a cube as your preview, and then stops. So now I'm back to the slide. You can also add animation. You select the object that you want to animate and add animation. This piece will animate when you either click it or after the previous action, which would be the cube. So I'm going to choose fade in, and you have a few more options here of how it will look. Let's choose fly in from the top. I want it relatively slow, and let's play. So it gives it a more professional look, and returns some of the features that were previously available only in PowerPoint. It's actually been a component of Google Slides all along, but it's buried down in there, so you're not really sure where to find it. So this way you can animate pieces or parts of the slideshow and add in transitions so it flows seamlessly when you are presenting. Another option that you have in Google Slides is to embed shapes and callouts, and equations, and arrows. So very similar to PowerPoint. Perhaps one cloud. So the default is, of course, this gray color, just like with the word art, but you can adjust the color. You can adjust the outline color, so you can either have a transparent outline here so no one sees it. You could have one with a shade of gray. You can adjust the thickness. You can even adjust if there's a dash or a dot. So some options there. You can adjust and make a border. Now the default is what you last used, so I'm going to change this to a bright blue. I'm going to remove that transparent, and then I'm going to leave it here. So now I can make a standout border, especially if I wanted to enter a text box here. This makes it a little bit more obvious. If you adjust the font and the size. So this becomes a little bit more obvious. And another option that you have is to adjust the order. So if I click on something and then right click again, you'll notice I have the option to order this. So if I want to bring this to the front, you no longer see what's behind it. Let's see, I'm going to order and send it to the back again. But I also have the option to rotate. Rotate it clockwise so that it looks like this. You can also, from there, by right-clicking, animate that particular section. Again, there's several ways to get to things. When you've finished with your slideshow and you want to present it, or you want students to present their slideshow, you can, once they're projecting or sharing, you can come over here to start presentation, and you can also look at something called presenter view. So this gives a window. For here, you would put this on an extended desktop. And then from here, you can look at the notes for each slide. You can look at some audience tools. If you want to start a new presentation, it actually gives a little code so that students can then, as they're viewing the slideshow, if they go to this link here, they can put in questions they may or may not have. So this is a good way for students who maybe don't want to talk, but would be willing to type and ask questions, that they could present that. And if you're on extended desktop, they're looking at this slide, you're looking here, you will see the questions that are entered. So now you will be able to see a question has been asked. You can either present this question to everyone, and if you do, it's posted here with the person who asked the question. So if someone asked a question in your class and it was a great one, lots of people saw it, lots of people asked the same thing, you might want to present that question and then ask later. So it's kind of like a Meet FM version so that students can collaborate in real time. You can answer questions. Because students wouldn't necessarily see this unless you post it, but it's a good way for you to get feedback without the fear. Sometimes our kids don't want to ask questions because they don't want to sound silly, but this way they can ask a question without anyone else knowing about it except for you. And again, the best way to see this is if you use the extend a desktop feature so that what you're looking at on your computer screen is not what the kids see. You drag this slide over to the extended desktop. It'd be like having two screens to look at. And then you can just carry on with the slideshow. And then if more questions pop up, you'll see it on the other side on the presenter notes. So you can pause this. You could look at your speaker notes if you wanted to be able to make sure you were talking and no one could see that you had your notes all written out. This is the way to make that happen. So I'm actually going to turn this off. And the slide just reverts back to normal. So I'm going to exit this. And then you're back to the original layout of your Google slide. So now let's take a look at some of the last things to finish up our slideshow. You have some options for downloading the document. So you can download it as a PowerPoint. You can even download it as an image. So a lot of times teachers on Teachers Pay Teachers, when they're creating things to sell that look professional and have lots of images, they don't use Word or Google Docs. They actually use slides or PowerPoint because slides can be saved as an image. So you have the ability to layer text and pictures, and it looks very professional. You can add shape elements and that sort of thing, and it just gives it something more. So that way you have this professional look, and you can then download it into a format that no one can adjust because you've put it into either a PDF or an image file. And again, JPEG is completely solid. The background will be solid. The elements would be solid. A PNG file, as long as the background is listed as transparent, which is one of your choices on the background when you change that, your whole thing would look like a professional image file. So those are some things to think about. The other option you have is to publish to the web. So this gives you a link that if you're creating a slideshow for students to follow along with, they can have the link and you wouldn't have to share from your drive, and then it would automatically advance. This is great for example, exhibition night, when you just want images of what your class has been working on during their project to just scroll throughout. So you can set some options. They are pretty limited. So you have a time limit. You can set it to start the slideshow immediately and then to restart the slideshow as soon as it finishes. You can look at the settings. So if you start publishing, you could make it so that only Hopewell Public Schools users can view your presentation as long as they're signed into their account. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see it. Once you do that, hit publish. It wants you to double check. And it now gives you a link in order to publish this. You could post it on a website or your blog. You could post it in a Google Classroom. Now I want to stop publishing this. You also have another option here. You have the link option, but you also have the embed option. This is great for embedding it into a website. You have the same options, although one additional one. Here you can adjust your size for how large or small the presentation would be. Then you adjust your times, and then you also choose when to start and stop that presentation. And then you would hit publish again, and the same options are available.